I don't know how to thank the people who have stuck by. Being a good teammate will always make other people want to protect you. WTF, I want someone to deposit 20K to my account. I'll let someone sniff me.
Welcome to Behind the Stream. Today I'm talking with Redundant30, a streamer, writer and podcaster who's all about fun, chaos and community. Hello Redundant30, thank you very much for finding time to join me.
Of course.
And before we dive in, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what do you do?
Sure. So I always say, like, when I'm streaming that I'm a variety streamer at night. I'm a mom of 3 during the day, and then when I find time, I'm able to write. Basically, I switched to working a 9-to-5 job to be a stay-at-home mom about 4 years ago now. And it was kind of still at the height of the pandemic, and I didn't really know what to do when I was home when the kids weren't home. So my friend told me to start podcasting. She's like, you'd be so great at it. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, you should totally stream too. And I was like, oh, all right. And I had no idea what streaming even really was. Like, you know, I had watched Twitch like years ago. I used to watch Outlast, like speed runs of Outlast, and I thought that was like fun, but I never knew that that was something you could actually do. And then 4 years ago, I started streaming, and here I am now today.
Here you are. That's awesome. And what's the story behind the name Redundant?
It's actually, for those of you who are older, it's my old AOL screen name. I really liked Green Day when I was growing up, and one of my favorite songs by them is Redundant, and it's on the Nimrod album. And the 30 is the day that is my birthday. So back then, like, it was like cool to have numbers in your name, and now it's like you want to just have the name. But I just always stuck with it, and I never literally, like, all of my social medias are just Redundant30. I've always been Redundant30. So yeah, it was my old AOL screen name.
And you also got Redundant30 underline TV, right? Which
Yes.
we will touch a bit later. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so first of all, let's talk about your gaming journey. What was the first game you ever fell in love?
So I always used to play Call of Duty. Like, I remember playing Call of Duty back on the Nintendo GameCube when it came out for that. And I was always a Nintendo gamer until, like, I want to say, like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I got my first Xbox. But that was the first game that I absolutely fell in love with. Prior to that was probably like Super Mario Brothers 3, which was back in the 90s. So I really kind of got into gaming, though, when Call of Duty came out, and I played that for years. And then I kind of realized that there were other games outside of just Call of Duty, and I've been branching out further and further since then. But yeah, definitely Call of Duty was what got me hooked.
As you mentioned, you are a variety streamer, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're streaming Hunt Showdown, Dead by Daylight, and Overwatch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mainly. Okay. And why are they your top picks?
Well, Dead by Daylight, there's really no other game that's like it. It's very different, obviously, from Hunt Showdown or Overwatch being FPSs.
They're all different, aren't they?
Yeah. And there's something about it that I just can't, like, it scratches an itch that no other game has ever done. And personally, I play Survivor more in Dead by Daylight because of the chase, and that's really why I continue to play it, is because I enjoy looping killers, mind gaming, things like that. And then with Hunt, it was the first FPS that I played that gave me satisfaction of getting kills in the game, because I played COD for so long. I was getting very burnt out of it. I'd played Warzone when it came out, and I played that until I ran it into the ground, and I was just like, I need something that's more challenging than Call of Duty, which is how I stumbled upon Hunt. I actually stumbled upon it through a Tarkov streamer, which was funny because, like, you know, Tarkov and Hunt, I feel like they're kind of similar in the sense of difficulty, learning curves. And then Overwatch, all of my friends played Overwatch, and I was like, it looks a little bit intimidating. It's very fast paced and like in comparison to the other games I play. So I just figured I'd give it a shot. And I think I'm the only person in the friend group who still consistently plays it. But it's definitely a nice change of pace from, Dead by Daylight and Hunt between the two of those.
I totally agree about that satisfaction when you get a kill in Hunt
Yeah.
Showdown, right? Because in Call of Duty or Warzone, you just like kill, kill, kill. But like when you get a kill in Hunt Showdown, you feel so like you deserved it, and it was like really hard work to do it. Yeah, I know what you mean then. And all three games, like which one brings the most chaos in your stream?
Probably, I would say probably Dead by Daylight for sure. Just because I feel like it's a lot of commentary when you're in chase with a killer. And I usually say the most off the wall things when I'm playing that game because it just whatever comes to my head when something weird happens in that game, it just comes out of my mouth. And I don't sometimes it's a little bit wild, but I think that's probably the more chaotic one out of all three of the games that I made.
And your streams are pretty long, aren't they? It's
Yeah,
not like 2 hour sessions.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do you keep your energy up? Like, as you said, mom by daylight and gaming during night, plus
Yeah.
writer. So, what keeps you going?
Um, well, lots of caffeine. That's definitely a given. But mostly I'm very fortunate that my kids do have outlets during the day that they are not physically here. So, if I am like overly tired from either a long stream or just a long day in general, I do have the opportunity to take breaks here by myself. My oldest is home from school right now for summer, but he is very independent and he's pretty self-sufficient with a lot of things. So he gives me breaks. It's nothing that I'm like, trying to juggle a billion things all the time, 24 hours a day. So honestly, I think my family has really given me a lot of space to recuperate once streams are done.
Sounds very good. And so, I got a very hard question for you. Like, if you had to drop one of those three games, which one that would be?
Oh, um, if I had to, I'd probably say Overwatch just because I don't play that one as much off stream. I would say between Hunt and Dead by Daylight, I play them pretty evenly off stream. And I just know so many more people that play both of those games that I would still be able to hang out, and have fun playing it regardless. Whereas Overwatch, I mostly play by myself, so I'd probably drop that one.
And community-wise, all three games, I believe, got different communities. And how would you describe each community?
Um, so the Dead by Daylight community, I would say, um, depending on where you're like interacting from, it can be pretty toxic, but I tend to find a lot of really good people within the community who just want to have fun and just want to play the game to have fun. It's when you get into those nitty-gritty of like people who are quote tryhards that really kind of make the game unfun. And I just try to make it fun regardless of what's happening in the game. Same with Hunt. Like a lot of people um, know me because I play a lot of meme loadouts because I just like making people laugh at the most ridiculous combinations that I can think of. So I think that overall, like between the two of like Dead by Daylight and Hunt, they come from similar backgrounds in the sense that it's like a horror based game. So I find myself finding people who play Dead by Daylight also play Hunt, and like we can kind of relate on that note. Whereas Overwatch is a very it's like more of like an
It's
esports.
different, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
more like a flashy lights and more fast pace, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely like I say, it's like a nice break from playing Hunt and Dead by Daylight because it's almost the polar opposite. So going into like an Overwatch game versus going into a Hunt match is night and day difference, which is it's why I play so many different games is because I don't want to get burnt out on one of them. So yeah, Overwatch is definitely a more fast-paced environment, and the community is it's kind of like you queue up for another game and you keep going. It's almost like Call of Duty in that sense because that's how it was when I played Warzone, but um I don't know, I get a little bit more satisfaction out of Overwatch than Call of Duty.
And what's your top tip for surviving in Dead by Daylight?
Um Ironically enough, I I tend to sacrifice myself for my teammates because I'd rather them escape than me. But if I had to give advice to somebody, I would say um, being a good teammate will always make other people want to protect you, which in turn will help you survive in the long run. So the more that you can help your teammates in that game, the better off that you are. And I'd say that that's pretty consistent across, all the matches I've played as Survivor and Dead by Daylight.
How would you describe your gaming style? Is it tactical, chaotic, or something else?
Um, it's funny because, I do stream with my actual face cam, but most of the time I stream as a potato filter. And I
I know
always
that we're gonna touch that.
yeah, I always joke that my play style is that of a potato. Like sometimes I'll do not so great things, and then other times I'll do something really good, and everybody will be like, "Wait a minute, are you a sweat?" And I think for the most part, I'm pretty I kind of I don't really have a plan when I go into a game, and whatever ends up happening, I just kind of adapt to it. So I guess adaptable, it would be like my play style.
All right, and do you got any plans to explore new genres soon, or you're fine with
Um,
this?
I I honestly I will try anything once. So I have no like written in stone plans to try anything new, but if somebody does introduce a game to me, I am more than happy to try it out. I recently got partnered with a game called The Bornless and Hunger, and both of those games are very similar in the genre of hunt, but they just have their own unique personalities that I think will fit well within my community. So, um, aside from those two games, though, I don't really have any set in stone plans to branch out. It just kind of happens.
All right. Last question about the gaming. What's your proudest gaming achievement?
Um, it actually is from Hunt. I was playing, it's been a while now that since it's happened, but I headshot somebody with a choke bolt, and I joked with my friends that I think that I've peaked in Hunt and I won't do anything better than that. So my goal is next to hit a headshot with a chaos bolt, but we'll see how that goes. The headshot with the choke bolt was a complete fluke. And
Was
it was
it
just
like a spark hit and then finish with a choke
no,
bomb,
no.
or?
It was an insta headshot with the choke bolt. I killed somebody by just shooting them with the choke bolt in the head.
All right. Awesome. Okay, let's go with some streaming, streaming life, and all the challenges during the streaming. So, tell me how your streaming journey began. It's very popular pandemic time or something else?
So yeah, with the when the pandemic started, I felt like a lot of people picked up streaming. And I kind of jumped on the ship as well. It was mostly though, like when I started streaming, I wanted it to be a space where people could come together and at least have some type of like human interaction because during the pandemic there was a lot of isolation. People were told to stay home. We had no real social interaction aside from like FaceTime or phone calls and of course the people that you lived with. So I wanted it to be more of a community for all of us to kind of like relax and vent about the things that were going on in our lives. And it's still very much like that. I think it's a lot more, I think it's evolved a little bit more because now that life is a little bit more back to normal from how it was in like 2020, 2021. that people do have outside lives that they can go and interact with, but then it's still kind of that come and sit down and it's like a almost watching a TV show where like for me personally, I have a very strict schedule that I follow. So everybody knows what they're expecting to see that night when I'm streaming. And it just feels like they're sitting down on their couch and like watching a TV show with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And your first streaming setup, how was it? Cameras, everything, or just live button without camera, without mic?
Yeah, so my first streaming setup, I bought a pre-built PC for like $600 and I only had one monitor and I didn't have a camera, but then I found out a way to use my phone as my camera a little bit afterwards. So I literally had my one monitor, my little potato PC, and my phone as my camera. And I had my iPad so I could read chat on the side. And that PC was, I don't know how I was able to play some of the games and stream them at the same time on the same PC because it was like bare bones, barely in, like I had to buy additional RAM because it only came with 8 gigs. Like it was just this little baby PC, and I played on that for about 2 years before I built this one that I have now. And my friend who told me to do the podcast, she was the one who bought me my microphone. So honestly, like she started my whole journey of like building up my rig and all of that. But it was very, very bare bones when I first started. And then eventually I wanted to be able to play different games that were a little bit harder on your GPU. So that's when I upgraded and, got my camera now that I have and a second monitor, and I just kind of expanded from there.
I think you got a really good friend that she motivated you to begin and helped out
Yeah.
with setup. Sounds like a really good friend. And
Yes, yes.
what was the biggest challenge in beginning, streaming wise?
Um, I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how to hold people's attention while you're gaming in general because for so long I just played video games for myself, and a lot of it was like people would come in to chat and talk, and when I first started I was struggling trying to keep a conversation going, and I think that I've been able to evolve past that point now, but definitely like the multitasking of playing a game and talking to people who come in was the hardest part for me.
You said that streaming changed the way you look at gaming and you became more, and I mean, like maybe you started to play slower, but more speaking with chat or
Um, for a while it did, I would say, but as time went on, I was able to kind of game the way I used to, and now I'm also able to like multitask where I can talk with people in chat as well. So I've gotten better at being able to play at the level that I would say I was prior like when I first started.
how did you handle days when motivation was low? I believe now community helps you out and keeps you going, but like in beginning where community is small, like where did you find motivation?
Um I was very fortunate that I joined a community that was very much supportive early on. They kind of volunteered as to be moderators just to make sure like if anybody came in and was rude or toxic or whatever it may be. Um, I think my mod team has really evolved since then. But it was really honestly just a group of us that all started streaming at the same time that looked out for each other. So I was very fortunate that I was able to find that community via TikTok, and then I've kind of adapted as the years have gone on, and now I have a pretty strong mod team that, I would say on and offline, I mean, we always look out for each other regardless of where we are.
It's like it keeps showing that it's all about community, isn't it? Like support from community, support from streamers, supporting each other. So it's always back to community, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And what's the weirdest or funniest moment that happened live?
Um, well, I have a little channel point redemption called It Was Heard Here. And whenever I'm streaming, I let everybody know who joins my VC on Discord that if you say some off the wall crazy thing, that it will get added into that randomizer like sound bit. Um, so I mean, I can't even tell you like the amount of times that people have just like said or done hilarious things. I'm trying to think of the funniest one. Um, and honestly, like there's just so many. I mean, we've had moments where like my one mod, I call him Potato. His name is John as a Potato, but he found me on TikTok and he was like, "What is this game?" Because I was playing Dead by Daylight on TikTok, and I was like, "Oh, it's called Dead by Daylight." I explained it, how you play the game, and he's like, "I might try this game. I don't really do horror games though." And I was like, "Oh, well, the horror aspect is only like the general theme of this game." And very first game on was a ghost face, which is a stealth killer, and he was in the voice chat, and I just hear like the beginning of a scream and then it just cuts out. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And then I see his character go down on the other side of the map. And he was like, "I thought you said that this wasn't scary." So like it was just funny to like, cause like he really didn't do horror games. And for whatever reason, I end up playing a lot of horror games on my channel. And now he's gotten like kind of desensitized to it. And I was like, "See, that's how I started. I didn't do horror. And then here I am now and I'm playing, a various amounts of games that are scary. And now you're watching them." He's like, "Yeah, you kind of warmed me up to it ever since that first game of Dead by Daylight."
Nice one. And what's the biggest tech fail, the tech disaster on your while you're streaming?
So I do a dual PC setup, and my streaming PC, I thought I had this great idea of getting one of these little mini gaming PCs temporarily so that I could like kind of milk all the time I have out of this PC that I play on. And yeah, the mini gaming PC is not it. It barely runs OBS and all of the applications that I have to like have open while I'm streaming. So I've just been waiting to upgrade that portion of my setup so that this way I can provide a little bit better quality of content. But that's definitely the worst tech investment that I've ever done. And if anybody's thinking about it, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Okay, and did you celebrate your 1K Twitch follower?
Yes.
And what did you do if you did? So what did you do?
Well, I celebrated it on my birthday this year, and I did a 12-hour stream, and I played some of my main games. I played a little bit of the main games early on, and then when it got to be the later hours, because my 12 hours has to be once my kids go to bed, I played some other games that I don't necessarily play as often. So I played Kingdom Come Deliverance, and I also played gosh, it's like all just a blur now. I played Alone in the Dark. I did a lot of giveaways. Mostly, I either did giveaways of games or I did giveaways of merch items, depending on what the person wanted. I had like an allotted amount set for those giveaways, and yeah, I did. It was a very long 12 hours, but I got through it.
Awesome. So yeah, it must be exciting. Like roughly how long it took you to get 1K followers?
It actually took me about 3.5 years to get 1,000.
Yeah, it's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, it was I'd like to think that a lot of the people that have followed, Alara, go sit down. I'd like to think that a lot of the people who have followed recently have, I see them a lot more in my stream than maybe when I first started and started getting followers trickling in. Now it's more consistent of the people who follow do come back. So I remember when, I first started streaming that when somebody followed me, I expected them to be back in the next stream and then I never saw them again. So, um, that could be quite discouraging when you first start streaming, but now I'm getting people who keep coming back, which is pretty cool.
Do you remember your first follower or subscriber?
I think my first follower was my husband.
Awesome.
Um, and then I know my first subscriber was my best friend, who got me the microphone. Um,
Yeah.
so she was the first one to subscribe, and then my husband was my first, or maybe it was. I think it was like my husband was my first, and she was like my second follower. And the second I got affiliate, she was my first subscriber.
It's like a really, really, really good friend you got.
Yes, yes.
uh, and do your viewers ever influence your game choices? Like, if somebody comes more like to watch Hunt Showdown, you play Hunt Showdown. If somebody like, do they have any saying on your choice?
Yeah, yeah. I actually hold votes in my Discord. So like if I'm streaming on a Sunday, I'll let my community vote on that Sunday for what they want to see. And then I also have my variety week, which is actually this week and next week. It's always the first and last week of every month. Alark. It's always the first and last week of every month. So I stream something different each night. And while they won't pick the games for these weeks, I do let them choose on Sundays what we do when I'm streaming like my main game. So my schedule is a little confusing when you first hear about it, but once you're here for a while, you kind of get the hang of it. But like I do my variety week on the first and last week of every month. And then I have the weeks in between Thursday, Friday, Saturday as my main games. And then Sundays is whatever my community chooses for me to play.
That's a very, very good way to keep your communication with your community, isn't it? Keeping them close and keeping them involved all the time.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with negative comments or people who troll?
Troll them back. I always say that I treat others how they treat me. So, it's always important to treat others how you want to be treated. But I like to troll back and forth with people. It doesn't really affect me personally because at the end of the day, if somebody's commenting on a post of mine, they don't know who I am. They've never been a part of the community. And if all they want to do is spread hate, it is what it is. Like they don't, they're not the people that I'm streaming for or playing games for. So I think that's, I think that's the hard part about being a content creator is that some of those comments can get to people. But for me personally, I tend to just troll back at them. And if they keep responding, it's engagement on a video that they said they weren't interested in. And if they don't, then it is what it is.
It is what it is, correctly. What's the longest stream you ever done?
I've done 2 12-hour streams. I don't think I can stay up past 12 hours anymore. Like, I think that's probably the cap that I can do.
Okay, and are there any stream moments that really stuck with you?
Yeah, there's a few. I think that the biggest one, I think it was like right when I first started streaming. I met a whole friend group. So like the friend who bought me my microphone, she introduced me to her cousin and a whole bunch of their friends that I still, hang out with to this day. And right, like it was early on when I started streaming, they just absolutely bombed me with bits and gifted subs. And like, I honestly was just speechless because I never thought anybody would want to watch me play video games. And then for them to like do all of that, like it was like they all collectively like decided we're just going to gift a whole bunch of stuff to her today. And I was honestly just like flabbergasted because I never thought anybody would ever, let alone want to watch me, but also like gift me things. Like I just thought that was really, really cool.
And like more about your community. What does your community mean to you personally?
My community for me is like having friends like IRL. Personally, I hang out with them off stream. I talk with them off stream, and it's almost like having somebody like, that I could meet out for coffee here. I can do that within my Discord community. So I treat them like I would treat my friends in real life. Um, Even though most of them live thousands of miles away, some overseas even. So it's pretty nice to have friends that you can reach out to outside of just, me playing a video game on stream.
The Discord. How did you grow your Discord, or how do you keep your community engaged?
So like I mentioned, I do allow my community to vote for what I play, but aside from that, I do community giveaways every month for people who choose to sub to me. I do offline gaming a lot of the time. I usually do most of my recorded, like my long form content. I'll ask for help from my community members if they're available. And they'll come play whatever game it is that I need them to help me out with. And that's honestly like I just make sure that I always stay engaged with them if they're ever talking in like the general chat or if they're posting clips of them doing, playing a game that we play together. I always try to encourage them to, keep going because I know a lot of people started specifically Dead by Daylight with me, and to watch them grow as a player is really, really cool because, I remember when I was first starting that game and I had no idea what I was doing. So it's mostly just a lot of, I try to encourage people for what they want to do. And then even if it's like real life stuff that they're going through, I have a section of the Discord that you can post anonymously so that if you don't want people to know it's you that's going through that, but you want people to like advice or people just to know what you're going through in general, then they have that option as well.
When new people find your stream, what kind of vibe you want them to feel?
I want them to feel like they can come and, just vent and chill and not have to worry about what's going on in their everyday life. I think we use video games a lot to escape from what we do during the day. And I'd like them to also feel that when a new person comes into my stream as well.
How do you balance being relatable and being entertaining? Because you need to become, when you stream, you need to become, I would say, a little bit more entertaining than when you're playing alone.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to do a lot of like commentating on my actual like what I'm actually doing in the game. That just reminds me that like if I haven't said anything in a while, it reminds me to just explain what I'm doing. I try to be a little bit more educational with certain games, like with with Dead by Daylight specifically. It's a lot easier to do that because I've been playing it longer. Um and I always try to answer questions because a lot of people don't even though Hunt's been out for almost 6 years, a lot of people don't know like what the game is. So I also try to explain to people who are new coming into the community or just have never seen Hunt before what the game actually is, explain what the point, like what the objective is. And I think a lot of that commentary and explanations has made people feel like they can ask more questions, which just encourages more dialogue between chat and myself.
How long you been playing Hunt?
I've been playing Hunt for 4 years.
Oh, yes, okay. And you probably agree that Hunt has a really steep learning curve, right?
Yes, yes.
And that's really helpful. What you do by helping with comments, I think, because that's the game people really can use somebody to help them to get in and
Yes, absolutely.
get the basics. And what's the best feedback you have got from your viewers?
I think a lot of people are very appreciative of my knowledge of the games in general. So when it comes to like Dead by Daylight, I can explain what perks a killer has just by playing against them while in game. And my teammates or even my viewers will be like, how do you know that? And I'll explain why I know that. And then they're able to kind of learn from that and just keep that knowledge for themselves. It's the same thing with Hunt as well as Overwatch. I do the same thing in both of those games where, I'll say, somebody will be like, how come you know that person died from a headshot? And then I'll explain to them, the headshot sound is different from just tagging them like in the body or the arm or the leg. And I make sure to kind of explain things in terms that they would understand, especially if they're not used to the game. So I think that kind of helps out my community in general, or just anybody who comes into my stream, because I'm very straightforward and I say things in terms that they would understand.
Is Hunt Showdown the game you raged the most? Maybe not like raged on the stream, but like from all three of them, is it? Would you agree that the Hunt is the one like? And I don't mean by people killing you. I mean by combination zombies attacking at the same time. Would you
Yeah.
agree that the Hunt is the one that makes you rage the most sometimes?
Say it's a toss up between Dead by Daylight and Hunt. A lot of the frustration I have with Dead by Daylight is ping related. And I'm sure like I could also argue that for Hunt Showdown as well. Like I have a lot of arguments or frustrations with ping related issues, but um Dead by Daylight servers have been not so great as of late, ever since they added this latest chapter. And I definitely complain about that aspect of the game. But it's honestly a toss up between Hunt and Dead by Daylight, I would say.
Yeah. And how important is mutual support between small streamers? As you said, like in beginning, that really helped you out. And how do you think without any like support, would you be in the same place where you are?
Um, honestly, I don't know how to thank the people who have stuck by for all these years. Like when I was still trying to figure out what streamer or what kind of streamer I was going to be, and I was just doing, I only did variety in the beginning, and I would just stream like, something different every day, and I was still trying to find my footing in the streamer world. And there are still people from day one that have come back and hung out, and it's like they never wavered in their support. And I always say, like, I always tell my viewers and my community that if you can't make it to a stream, like, don't feel like you're letting me down or anything, because I understand that outside life comes first. Like, I completely understand that. And I always tell people, like, I will always be there to support you when time is available, because as you know, I'm a mom of three and I have outside commitments as well, despite, at night I do my streaming and my gaming. And what's up,
Yes,
buddy?
I know. And you also write when you got time.
Yeah, if I have the time, I try to sit down and write for like an hour. Finding an hour during the day though has been a lot harder as of recent. So, yeah, it's definitely I wouldn't say I like require somebody to support me or anything. Like if I go to somebody's stream and I watch them, it's because I want to watch them and I enjoy their content. And I never expect anything in return. So like if they never come to my stream, it's no hard feelings. I like to watch what you do, and that's that. And I make sure to tell people that too, who are small streamers, like I will definitely support you and I will watch you if I like your content, and you never have to feel like you have to reciprocate that. Like I'll never make anybody feel like that.
Okay, and let's switch to that avatar thing, your potato avatar.
Yeah.
And does it count as a VTuber?
I
Because
think
I'm really
I
confused about VTuber
yeah,
stuff. It's
I've been told that it counts as a VTuber. I don't, cuz like when I think of VTuber, I think of something completely different than a potato, but I mean, technically, I guess it is kind of a VTuber model. Despite it being, a potato with headphones or a potato with a cowboy hat, depending on what I'm playing.
and what inspired you to choose a potato as your identity?
It's funny because the potato filter used to be a channel point redemption. And I always said like, I play like a potato, or I'm playing like a potato right now. And I kind of just like wanted it to be like, it's okay if you're not that great at a video game, because I'm a potato playing the video game. So, visually and literally. So I always try to I always try to make a little bit of a joke out of it. I know a lot of my community would probably say that I'm a sweat when I play certain games. And I still always am like, no, 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 I'm not a sweat. I'm just a potato. And then I'll just do something like crazy in the game itself. And, then they'll all be like, yeah, see, she's a sweat. She's lying. And I'm like, no, 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 I swear I'm a potato. And that's kind of how it all like came out was like, I would always say that I was a potato whenever I made a mistake in the game. And then I found a potato filter so I could actually be a potato.
You sometimes also stream like with face cam, right? So with face cam and sometimes with potato. And how do you say? Are there any benefits streaming with avatar?
I think that one, I always joke that I have a horrible gaming face when I'm playing a game, like when I'm really concentrating. So streaming with a filter definitely helps hide that part. But I think it's also important, like when I stream with a face cam, a lot of people like that connection of like actually seeing like a person behind the screen. So that's why I could never like get rid of my face cam days versus my potato filter days. Cause while everybody loves when I play as a potato, they also like seeing like my actual face. So I would say it definitely hides if you have a really bad gamer face like me using a filter. But I think also people do enjoy actually seeing your real face from time to time.
Would you agree that it's very helpful for new streamers because beginnings are stressful, aren't they? You don't want to stream with cameras. Not everybody feels comfortable in front of camera. And would you agree that those avatars help?
Yeah, I do think they would help for sure because like for me it just adds another layer of like I don't have to worry about, you know, how my face is looking when I'm streaming or when I'm gaming or even if like you have issues with being on camera in general, it adds an extra layer to make it a little bit easier to transition to being a streamer.
Yeah, and do you think like can you imagine streaming without avatar? Like they like completely get rid of it because that's part of your personality, right? It's like
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
It feels like I'm think many people would recognize you from that avatar.
yeah, I think it's funny because there's a lot of people who have used that potato filter I use, and I always get asked like, "Did you take that filter from this person?" But it's funny because all the potato people that I know, that sounds so silly when I say it like that, but all the potato filter streamers that I know, they all say the same thing, and I'm the same way. Like, I, the potato filter is not copyrighted or trademarked, and we all just use it for different means. And I don't think I would ever be able to get rid of it. Like, there was a time that the software that I used got disabled and I was like, man, like at that point, it was only a channel point redemption. But then everybody was like, I missed the potato filter. I missed the potato filter. And I figured out how to re download it and get it back. And everybody's been beyond happy about the filter staying with the channel.
Okay, and let's talk about content across different platforms. Like, do you stream on other platforms or just Twitch?
Occasionally I'll stream on TikTok. Um, it's kind of like I do it during like special times for the games that I play. So if there's like an event that's coming up or a new killer comes out for Dead by Daylight, I'll stream it on TikTok during the day if I have time. But for the most part, I typically just stream on Twitch. I've dabbled on YouTube trying to go live on there. Um, but it's kind of like the software is kind of clunky for YouTube, so I typically just stick with Twitch and occasionally TikTok.
Do you think it's necessary for streamers to be on multiple platforms these days?
I think so. A lot of growth comes from posting to at least posting to other platforms, YouTube, TikTok. Um, I know some people have even been going on Instagram and posting there, and I think it's hard to stand out in a sea that is so big when you're, especially when you're a variety streamer. I feel like it's even harder because people come a lot of the time to your stream based on what game you're playing. And because I play so many different ones, it's hard to keep people like new people entertained when I switch to a different game. So for instance, like if I'm streaming Dead by Daylight one month and then the next month I switch to Overwatch, it's hard to retain people from my Dead by Daylight streams to when I'm playing Overwatch. So I think it's really necessary to show what your content is on other platforms.
Do you make different content for each platform? You just use the same clip for YouTube Shorts and TikTok?
Yeah, I typically will post the same things on TikTok and YouTube because the thing is like people who follow me on TikTok may not subscribe to me on YouTube or may not follow me on Twitch. So I try to just use the same content, one to make my life easier because having to edit two different things and then post it separately on two different platforms can be a little bit overwhelming. So for the most part, I use I whatever clip I edit, I post it on both of them. And my hopes at the end of the day is that they will see my content on YouTube and then come over to Twitch, which is where I live stream. Yeah, I use the same clips on multiple platforms.
Do you schedule content for short videos, or when something funny happens, you post it? Like what I mean is like you go in the game with a plan to get like I don't know, for example, 5 headshots with Springfield in Hunt Showdown, and to make just a highlight, or you just play as normal, and then what if something happens, you just post it?
It's a little bit of both. Depending on the game. I typically for Hunt, I come up with these bizarre meme builds and I will plan a day that I will play that and only that loadout. Some days that I do that are go horribly wrong, because my meme loadouts aren't really made for survivability of me. It's mostly just to get clips. One of my favorite ones that I did was the beekeeper build where I ran nothing but poison and 4 hive bombs. And my goal was to get those hive bombs to kill an entire team, which I did do. um, yeah, I was playing solo v trio because whenever I come up with a meme build, I always test it out. If I think it's gonna kill my teammates, I'll test it out in solo first before I go into trios with my team. And I watched my beehives travel between a trio and kill all 3 of them, which was my main goal the whole stream that I did. So with that, sometimes I'll do the same thing in Dead by Daylight. Like I'll do lore accurate builds where I read the lore of the character and then I pick perks that are in the game that match their personality. And I'll try to get an escape on that build. And sometimes the builds aren't the greatest, but it just provides an extra layer of challenge for me. And I did something similar in Overwatch too, where I let a wheel choose what character I play. And then I posted like the highlight reels from those characters that I had to get a win on.
Which game is doing the best on with from all 3 games? Which one is doing the best on TikTok and which one is doing the best on YouTube?
It's weird. It's different on YouTube and TikTok. So on TikTok, Overwatch seems to be doing better. Whereas on YouTube, it's a toss-up between Hunt and Dead by Daylight. So I found that interesting. I think a lot of my following is Overwatch players, and I didn't intend for it to be that way, but I just think that's what ended up happening. So for whatever reason, that content does really well on TikTok, whereas my Dead by Daylight and Hunt content does really well on YouTube.
How do you deal with negative comments on your short-term videos? Like, there's always somebody who's gonna write something. Do you like keep fighting with them, reply them, or just ignore them or delete them?
I usually reply back, mostly because I always say that, your number one haters are your bigger supporters and they just don't know it. I have gotten back and forth. I used to do this little thing where if somebody left a really like ridiculous comment on one of my videos, I would take a screenshot of it and it would be like on my full screen view of my stream so that people like, where's that comment from? And I would be like, oh, it's from my YouTube. And it was just like things that people would say that you'd be like, why are they saying that to you? And I honestly don't let a lot of the negative comments affect me. I've probably seen it all. Um, and I just think it's funny. Like a lot of them are like, I hate this game, and it's like my Overwatch stuff. And I'm like, well, if you hate this game, why is it showing up in your timeline? And I'll go back and forth with them for a little bit. And it honestly just helps out with engagement on your video anyway. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win. They're helping me, even though they don't like the game that I'm playing.
Do you use AI, for example, in your thumbnails or descriptions of video?
I've never used AI. I do a lot of my editing on my iPad. I have Procreate, so I do all my thumbnails. I do myself. I've never had to use AI for any type of descriptions or anything.
Picture.
No pictures. No pictures right now, buddy.
I got a picture.
Go sit down. Go ahead.
Picture.
Go take your picture on the iPad. But yeah, I've never had to use AI for any descriptions or any of my thumbnails. I just do it all myself on my iPad.
How do you think on which platform is it is the hardest to grow on?
I would say probably Twitch, as far as like average viewership is concerned. Mine has fluctuated a lot because I don't stream just one game, and I know a lot of my community members were really worried about that. They're like, I want you to be like a really big streamer, but I feel like because you play
It'll take a day.
that a lot of my community members are like worried that I would pick one game that maybe they didn't like as much. But I always reassure them, like I am going to keep doing what I'm doing because this is how I started streaming. And while it may be harder to, garner attention because I'm not staying with one game, I enjoy the company that comes in. And that's more important to me than, let's say, having 3,000 viewers or whatnot. So I think that it's definitely harder to get an average viewership if you're planning on being a variety streamer.
You okay, are you?
Alark, go sit down. Please. I think it's harder to grow as a variety streamer on Twitch, whereas on the other platforms, it's easier to post specific content and collect like different viewers from different areas of gaming.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's speak about some advices for new streamers, because I think you're entitled enough to give, because you got over 1,000 followers, so you've been working hard. You can give some nice advice. And so, what's something that you wish someone would tell you before you started streaming?
I wish that they would have told me that playing a popular game just because it's a popular game isn't always the way to start streaming. Back when I first started streaming, I played COD and Call of Duty, and I wasn't even really enjoying the game anymore. I was just playing it because I knew so many people played it on Twitch. And if somebody would have told me just play what makes you happy, I think I would have had a much different start to streaming. And I've told a ton of people that, whenever somebody says, I want to get into streaming, what's your advice? I always say, play what makes you happy, because people will know that you're unhappy playing the game that you're playing. They will be able to see it. They'll be able to hear it in your voice. And it's much better to play a game that brings you joy than it is to play a game that just makes you bored or annoyed, even.
How important is to have a schedule when starting out?
Super, super important. That's one of the things I was talking to a community member about was, if you don't have a schedule, no one's going to know when to show up. And, unless you're a huge streamer that can just hit the go live button and, they can pop in, people will pop in droves. It's really important to tell the people who do come to your stream when you'll be streaming, and they'll know to make time for you. Whereas instead of just hitting the go live button and hoping people will see the notification, because Twitch notifications are horrible. I don't know what it's like on YouTube or TikTok with notifications, but I know that Twitch notifications barely even come through most of the time for people. So definitely getting a good schedule, even if it's only like 1 or 2 days a week, but you know that you can show up at that time, I would recommend setting a schedule for that.
And so your advice how to deal with streaming to small amount of viewers, like 0 or like 5, because that's what's happening in beginning, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggled with that for a while, especially when I first started because like I said, I had been playing games that were super obscure and they weren't really like big popular games. So, one of the big things that I will say is turn your viewer count off. Because the more that you focus on numbers and your goal is I want to get to 10 average viewers and then you see a stream and you're only streaming to 1 or 0, even 0 people, it's gonna just discourage you. And when you turn that viewer count off, it's a lot easier to focus on your chat. Even if it is just one person, it's a lot easier to focus on them and have a conversation with them than it is to look at the viewer count and hello. It's a lot easier to focus on them instead of just looking at the viewer count and feeling discouraged because you don't have the max amount of people in there.
And what's your take on using TikTok or YouTube Shorts to grow? Like, is it even possible without them these days when it's such a big competition?
Yeah, I think it is. If your content is original enough, I think that you can grow anywhere, honestly. I took like I didn't really post on YouTube recently until maybe like a year ago is when I really started consistently posting on there. And if you find like your niche with your content, then typically I would say it's pretty easy to get views. Even being, that YouTube is a huge platform or TikTok being a huge platform, once you find that content that works, I think it's pretty easy to get like almost like a snowball effect from it, and you're able to get more and more viewers, which means potentially more and more people subscribing and so on and so forth.
What should the new streamers avoid doing on stream?
Definitely don't call out lurkers. I know a lot of people will like open up their viewer list and then call out the people who are just maybe not saying anything in their chat, but just kind of chilling, watching the stream. It's some people don't want to be called out directly, and it'll make them feel awkward and they might leave in general because they don't want to be called out in the first place. So I would say just kind of let things happen as they happen and act like you're having a conversation with somebody you know in real life.
What would be the advice how to get the courage to appear in front of camera? Because that's a big thing many people struggle with. So how you would encourage them?
So when I first started streaming, I didn't have a camera, but then I had looked at Reddit and a bunch of my friends had cameras, and I don't want to say I was peer pressured into it because I did feel like I wanted to have more of a personal connection with people, and I didn't feel like I could do that without a camera on. I would say that if you're struggling with that, definitely looking into like a VTuber or filters is a great way to get started. Like my potato filter, or even like, the VTuber models that people have. Just because it feels like you're having a conversation with a person when you do that. And you can always still feel like you're sitting at home in your chair playing a video game and the audience is there in the background, to help with like the camera shyness. Like I always just act like when I first started streaming, I remember like I was streaming to like 1, maybe 2 people. And I did a lot of narrating of what I was doing so that it was like I was having a conversation and the camera just didn't even feel like it was there. So it takes getting used to, but over time it will get easier to speak one-on-one with everybody and chat with a camera.
When starting, what's better, copy what other big streamers do and like follow the trends, or start straight away to becoming yourself and create your own style?
Yeah, I would say that you should definitely create your own style right off the bat. Um, people will always watch, let's say, like I know Tim the Tatman is a big Call of Duty, well, was a big Call of Duty streamer, and he he is the only version of himself that will be on YouTube, whereas like you're gonna be like if you try to copy him, I don't think it's necessarily going to come off the best way because everybody's going to go watch that specific streamer if that's the person that they like, whereas they're not going to go watch somebody who's attempting to be like them, in my opinion anyway. I think finding yourself and finding what your personality is when you're streaming um, early on is what's best to build your community and build what your personality of your stream's going to be.
What's one newbie mistake you see all the time? When streamers start, what's the one mistake you like recognize straight away?
I think the one thing that I usually see is that they forget that they're streaming. So you can tell that they're just focusing on the game. And by the time that, maybe you had typed in chat like 15 minutes ago, that person's already gone because you were too focused on the game rather than like your chat. I think a lot of people think that if you're really good at the game, people will like flock to you in droves, but people want interaction and they want conversation. So the more that you can stay aware of who's in your chat and who's talking to you, the better for you overall it will be.
Okay, so it's time to get into fire questions. Let's do that. And since your avatar is potato, so what's your favorite potato dish?
Probably I want to say hash browns. Like there's these mini hash browns here in the States that they're shaped like little coins and they look like almost like the I don't know if you have McDonald's hash browns there. Like they're just little circle shaped hash browns.
Okay, and which killer from Dead by Daylight you would invite to your brunch?
Which killer would I invite? Probably Trapper. Yeah, Trapper, because he was one of the only killers that didn't want to kill people, and the entity, his lores, the entity made him into the killer that he was. So I think he's actually a pretty nice guy underneath it all.
And okay, let's get to this thing. 3 words to describe your community.
Welcoming, potatoes, and I'd say resilient.
And how would you say, which was the first game you ever raged at?
Probably Super Mario Brothers 3 when I was 6.
And with all of your hobbies, which one is favorite outside the gaming?
Writing will definitely always be one of my favorites. Even though I don't do it as much anymore, it's nice to take a break from gaming and, everything else that's going on and create a whole new world on paper. So definitely writing.
Twitch or YouTube, if you could keep only one?
Twitch.
Twitch, okay. And a game character you would totally be friends in real life?
That's a good question. Probably Ellie from The Last of Us 2.
Yes,
and The Last
awesome,
of Us, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You played the game?
Yes, I've played I played The Last of Us like 5 times and I'm on my second playthrough of The Last of Us 2 right now.
Last of Us 2 as well. And that's one of the, like, would you agree that that's the most that's the game that captivates like you emotionally, the best story, I would say?
Yeah, between that, like I would say The Last of Us, the first game probably is better than the second one. It's a toss up though between that and I don't know if you've ever played the Walking Dead Telltale games. but there's a character called Clementine, and I played through the whole series, and that game also gave me the same feeling that the ending of The Last of Us did too.
Would you rather be stuck in Hunt Showdown or Dead by Daylight?
I would probably rather be stuck in Hunt Showdown because the survivors in Dead by Daylight, they are on a perpetual cycle of going into games and they don't remember what happened before. So like when you escape a game, you just get put back into another game and you don't remember that you escaped the last time. So I feel like Hunt, you could extract, I don't know, maybe sit back and have a beer or something between going back into the next game.
Something that instantly makes you smile. Could be outside the gaming.
Definitely my kids. I've always wanted to be a mom, and all three of my kids are on the autism spectrum. And hearing my kids being able to talk because they were all nonverbal for so long, it brings me so much happiness because they really had to work hard to be able to communicate. So definitely my kids are the number one.
And favorite snack during the stream? Something with potatoes?
Yeah, I mean, everyone always jokes whenever I eat like potato chips or anything. They're like, "Aren't you eating your own kind when you do that?" I usually do. I usually like whatever my kids have snacks. It could be like goldfish or like, like potato chips. I'll usually go with those.
Yeah, and a funniest chat message you ever read?
Hold on. I actually think I have this one saved. Let me pull it up. This one just happened like recently too, so. WTF, I want someone to deposit 20K to my account. I'll let someone sniff me.
That's not bad. Okay. What's the first thing you do after ending a stream?
Well, I usually go through my stream markers or anything that somebody has clipped, and I download it to my PC so that I can start editing the next day. I'm not a bulk editor, so like I know a lot of people will have like one day a week that they edit for the whole week. I do it as they come in. So I'll edit, my TikTok short or even my long form YouTube videos that day and then post it later the next day.
And by your opinion, which game is really overrated and which game is really underrated?
I definitely think that Marvel Rivals is very overrated. And I know that's super controversial because people love that game, but I can't personally get into it. And as far as underrated games, I've been playing this one game called Copycat, and it's a small indie game, but it's a story about a cat that gets adopted into an older woman's home. And then the cat that the woman did have prior to you getting adopted gets found and brought into the home, and you both look alike. And it's just like a really cool like story game. And I don't think a lot of people know about it. Like it's a really cute game in general.
What would be one word that the community would use to describe you?
Aside from potato, I think that they would probably describe me as laid back, wholesome.
Okay, that's about it about that thing. And you also got a podcast, right?
Yes.
Or had the podcast, but and it was like, can you tell about it a little bit?
Yeah. So when I first before I started streaming, I was doing a podcast where I would talk about my my experiences and like where I kind of came from, how I ended up where I am, and then I would read some of my writing that I have done, and it evolved into more of like a local legends storytelling um podcast, and then I got so focused on streaming and making content, and I got partnered with two games, so I felt like I had to transition away from that. But my podcast was supposed to be about telling stories about my own life to share um who I was with the world, and also to kind of create more conversations about, you know, hardships that I had growing up and things that maybe are like taboo to talk about. I made sure to kind of highlight on my podcast.
Yes, you got more seasons outside the YouTube, right? But
Yes.
on the YouTube, you got just 5 episodes
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
6, right? And I listened to them yesterday. I was planning
Oh.
like it was midnight. I was planning like I'll do a quick listen, like all 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with one with the Walk with Dead, and the other one that was after that one. So,
Mm-hmm.
and after those two, it was like really, like as you said in one of them, it's important to speak about things, isn't it? Either they good or bad.
Yes.
And it's very kind of, I will not go in details, but it's kind of heavy stuff, I would say, that
Yeah.
people should think about. And the main thing about I got it from it, both of them ended on a note that always check on your close people, like how they're doing, because
Mm-hmm.
you never know what people are going through, and it was very brave from you to tell those stories, and yeah, that was very that was very brave, I think, from you,
Thank
and
you.
and other other ones. Where are the other ones? The full stories available?
Yes, they're on Spotify. So previous episodes, if you want to listen to anything older than the ones that are on YouTube, are all available on Spotify under the same Campfire Chronicles name.
Yeah, like I said, on YouTube, there are the short ones, aren't they? Where you talk about your experiences and stuff like that. But on the Spotify, there are the long ones, like big stories.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
and
much longer. Mm-hmm.
okay, and are they based on? Is it like originally made up, or they are on real life events? Those stories.
Some of them are based on real life. I think most of the ones that I've done on my podcast are based on real life experiences of myself. Um, there were some that I read that like stories that I wrote that were fictional. But for the most part on my podcast, I always stuck to things that I experienced throughout my life.
Like, what's the main? Like I said, I listened to those two, and I was like, I didn't follow with the other ones because I was like, I was started to think like, what impacted me, how I impacted other people, and like I was like I completely got lost, and I spent like, I don't know, 1 hour or 2 hours at least like lying in bed and thinking about such kind of things, like how
Mm-hmm.
people hide some things and you never know what's happening, and how important it is to keep in touch with your close ones. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it's some nice and emotional stuff. And on the long stories that are 1 hour long, is it on your own? You do all the recording, or you got other people?
Sometimes I'll have other people come and help me. But for the most part it's just me. I know earlier when my friend who bought me the microphone, she was featured on um some of the episodes as well as did my editing, and then once I started figuring out editing software and everything, I ended up swapping all of it into, you know, into my own editing software, and I kind of just went from there. And then, you know, I haven't posted on the podcast in a while. I know a lot of people have asked me to bring it back. I got a lot on my plate, so that's kind of been on the back burner. It might come back one day. I don't know. Maybe one day soon.
Is it horror stories, all of them, or because it's called Campfire Chronicles, Stories
Mhm.
After Dark, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
is it all like spooky, horror-ish made, or are there also some thrilling or comedy or love stories?
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything on there. I know the last couple ones were more I guess darker themed, but it's kind of a mix. Like I always say that I have a very dark humorish look at some of the things that have happened. I always cope with, joking and making it more lighthearted because a lot of the things that I've grown up with maybe aren't what somebody else has experienced or ever experienced. So, like, I can understand me telling people what I've been through might be hard to hear for them. So, I always try to make it more, I guess,
Try to laugh it
palatable.
off, right?
Yeah,
Instead
like
of
not,
telling how you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I read that about it was in that scene where the bridge was, and you just laughed it off when you. And I
Hmm.
saw it about myself how many things I hide behind my sarcasm because I don't like because I don't know how to react to those emotions or what I want to hide something. So yeah, I
Hmm.
would definitely encourage viewers to listen to those stories, and uh, and also you got books as well, right?
Yes, yes. I have a couple.
They are on Amazon, and at least 7, was it? Even more?
Yeah, I have a few that I was featured in like anthologies, so it's a ton of different authors, and then I have um 5 that I published on Amazon that are just me. But I've been featured in several literary magazines across the web. Uh Mostly before I had kids, I was able to write a lot more. So I was accepted into several literary magazines across the internet.
How did your journey started as an author? Was it like from childhood, or did it just sparked in one day, or?
I think it started like when I was in middle school, I want to say. I used to bring around this notebook and it was I would write, I loved R.L. Stine growing up. He was like one of my favorite authors. He wrote the Goosebumps series, and he also wrote Fear Street, which was like the teen version of Goosebumps. And I wanted to be like a horror writer, but I used to like kind of emulate his stuff when I was younger, and then I started growing into my own writing style as I got older. And I went to school for journalism and for creative writing, and that's when I started submitting the things that I had written to the literary magazines, and very much so how I am as a person, sarcasm, hiding, like just not telling people bluntly what I've gone through is kind of how my writing style ended up being. So a lot of the works that I have are kind of thrillers slash. I always say I'm a magical realism writer where I take like elements of like supernatural type things or fantasy type ideas and I put them in a world like we live in, and then I just never explain why they are the way that they are. As far as my fiction is concerned, like all of my nonfiction stuff is just very straightforward, and a lot of it does have some dark humor in there because I need to make people laugh a little bit with some of the things that I've been through. But yeah, it definitely started when I was around middle school age. I think I was like 12 or 11 when I started writing in that notebook.
How do you decide when book is like truly finished? Because I believe you can go back and I want to change that, and especially if like I'm kind of perfectionist, and I would be like, oh no, that's not wrong, and I can do that, and like, how do you decide when it's finished?
I kind of write things in a very weird way. I usually write the ending first, so I know how the book is going to end, and then I just write everything up until that point.
Wow, that's interesting. Is that very popular in writers, or is it just your style?
I think it's just my style. I don't really plan things out when I write, so like I know a lot of people like will like outline what their story's going to be like. I whatever scene comes to my head, I write it and then I connect the scenes together with more story. So I always start with the ending and then I just piece together the rest of it along the way.
If a new reader like becomes from this interested in your collection, like with which book they should start?
I would say to start with, there's a book called Disenchanted. That was probably my favorite one to write because it was so different from what I had written prior. Um, and it's a complete book. So like I have a series on Amazon as well, but that one's just like front to back is one book, one story. So I think that that would probably be the best one to start with.
What's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring author?
Don't get discouraged when you feel like you have nothing to say. I struggled a lot with that once I started having kids. I found myself like really crunched for time for when I can write, and I always struggled a lot with finding the words, and I just felt like everything I was writing was just not good. So my advice would be to just keep writing regardless, and eventually the good stuff will come. It just takes a little bit longer sometimes.
So I believe we spoke about all the things, streaming. We gave some advice. You gave some advices, and we also spoke about your podcast and like you being author. And I think like that's probably the thing people didn't know, but I hope they find it very interesting and even
Yeah,
check your books maybe.
that would be cool.
And yeah, that would be cool. And that's it for today's episode of Behind the Stream. Big thanks to Redundant for sharing your story, your chaos, and all the good vibes. And to viewers, I would like to say, make sure to check her out on Twitch, on TikTok, YouTube, and everything else she's doing. And of course, I do the classic sentence. If you enjoyed this, follow the show and share it to someone who knows great creators. And see you next time. Bye bye.